Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me again today. My name is Cynthia and this will be a chatty journal with me video. So I'm just opening up my journal. This is the first spread that I'm doing in here, so it's quite exciting but a little bit nerve-wracking. I've selected some items that I'd like to journal about today. Parts of it are from my daily life and other bits are just loose hands from other journaling videos and some printables that I've selected that were interesting to me right now. So this is one of the cards that I really wanted to use. So I'm just going through my journal to figure out where it would be suited. So which page I would like to use it in. I do like to journal wherever I feel like journaling that day, so I don't do chronologically. I just select pages based on colors, and whatever speaks to me that day is what I select. So I'm just debating here, but this is the page that I decide to journal on. I like the color tones and just the simplicity of it kind of worked out for me. I'm just looking at the back of that. I'm not sure. I don't end up keeping the back as what it is, just because it doesn't quite go with the other colors that I'm including. So I'm just tearing up part of this collage printable here. I'll list all the printables that I use down below so you can take a look if you're curious. But I'm just moving things around, trying to figure out what I like. This is usually my process when I create a page. Most of the time I select a few items, try to make them work together, and if it's taking me too long to make it work, I start gluing because that means I'm just being too indecisive. So now I'm just picking out a few more items that I know I want to use right away. I know that I'm not going to be using the zucchini thing on the same page as the little deers, probably on the other page, and I'm just trying to see if I can cover some of the zucchini because I find that the envelope is just a little bit too bright. So I'm trying to see how my items are gonna go in together. And I figure out that this tag here fits quite nicely in there, and so does this little tag. So I set those aside for now. And I have a sip of coffee because it's very early in the morning as I am journaling. So I think that little doily goes quite well on that page. You can't quite see the lining on the page, but it's a printable of a ledger, so there is quite a bit of a little bit more contrast happening than what you're able to see from the video. And I want to put a wide washi in the middle because it's these are pages from two different signatures, so there's a little bit of a bigger gap between them. And I'm trying to figure out which washi I like, so it's hard to tell just by putting them together just on the page, so I simply unroll it and try and see. So I do end up settling down for this one. It's stuck a little bit to my page and I'm trying to not rip the paper. The paper on the right is from an old dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, so it's a little bit more brittle than other papers, so I didn't want it to be ruined. So I'm just making some room to be able to place the washi onto here. I'm a very clumsy person, and as I hold things, as I glue things down, everything sticks to me. I get my fingers stuck on everything, and yeah, I struggle a little bit with the washi. I don't know if that happens to you guys too, but It's a challenge for me sometimes, so I got a little bit of that process on here. So at the top there, I did just cut up part of the washi because my pages are not the same, not the same height. So I didn't mind not having the washi go onto the next page, so I just left it kind of like this. And now I'm going back to that left page and simply trimming. There was just a little bit of white left around that printable, and I'm just getting rid of that to be able to glue it down. Because this paper is a little bit glossy, I chose to use some clear glue. I'm going back and forth between my glue sticks and clear glue. It just depends on the type of paper, and you know, I like using both as well as some double-sided tape in my journals. So I think the key is simply to putting enough, but not too much, especially for the wet glue. So I'm just securing that in the corner carefully so that it aligns properly. And then onto trying to figure out exactly how to place that doily. I'd love to know if you guys have any tricks to glue down doilies. I find that anytime I try, I always end up with so much glue on my fingers as it just goes through all the little holes, and you can't really apply the glue to the doily. Rather, you have to apply it to the page. And yeah, I just find it very very challenging. I don't have many doilies. This was part of a mailing order that I did, and it came in as a surprise actually, so it's not something that I often work with. I do really like the look of them though. So here I'm just trying to do my best without putting glue everywhere. So I'm going back to the image and trying to figure out how I want to be able to access the back of it, because I do plan on journaling in the back. So I settle on wanting to be able to flip it out kind of like as a book page rather than vertically. And I am going to be grabbing some washi tape to do that. I settle on the washi tape that I didn't use the first time around that I was looking at washi tape to include in the page. And here I do fold it over the page as there's nothing on the other page. It's a white background, so it really doesn't matter. It will be covered up anyway. I just put some more washi on the other side there. It's kind of messy, but that's really my style of journaling. I'm not a perfectionist. I like things to be very well done, but I'm very much a, well, that looks good, and just leave it alone. And I tend to tell myself it probably looks better than what I think, so that's my outlook on my crafting as well. So I'm going back to this piece of paper with the music sheet, and I like the texture that it offers. It's a little bit ripped and I really like that, so I add a little bit of glue to put that on the back side here. And don't worry you guys, I reframe this in just a couple minutes. So I'm gluing that down and pressing down, and there is a little bit that overlaps onto the page where it's folding, so I'm doing my best to make sure that will also stick. And then I also need a piece for the top, so I decided to use what looks like a bit of a paper bag perhaps on here. So it's from that same page I used in the beginning for with the mushroom on it. And again, I just trim a little bit of that white excess that was surrounding the printable, and I will glue that down onto the top part of the back of that image. So I actually decided to distress it a little bit since as I tore it, some white showed up, and I don't distress everything. And you can see I'm not using the proper tool to be distressing. I'm using an old makeup brush that I don't make any use for. But that's because I just got some distressing ink and I'm still playing around with it and trying to figure out whether I like it before committing to purchasing full-size items and an actual tool to apply the distressing. And I'm like that with a lot of things. You know, I really try and create with what I have at home, and if I purchase something and it's not quite the best that it could be, I really try to make it work for me and finish it before getting more new things. So I glue that onto the top there, and I'm just pressing down again to make sure that it adheres properly, that the corners are going to be well glued. And I have a little piece here overlapping again, but this paper, like I said earlier, it's a bit of a glossier paper. Unfortunately, I don't have a printer at home, so I get my things printed at a Staples here, which is just like a office, I think it's office work. So I just get that printed there because that's one of my kind of my easiest option at the moment. And I'm still trying to figure out which paper works best for me. So I'm trying to make it stick, but I ended up from earlier when I ripped my washi, I had some bits and pieces and I never throw those out. I always find a way to use them within those pages, and I'm going to use a small piece here to simply really secure the end of that paper so it doesn't lift up. So I'm seeing some of that paper poke through and I didn't want to bother having to cut, so I just ink it down so that it's not quite as visible and make it blend a little bit better. So now I'm ready to move on to the next page, and continue the spread. I really want to use this this little envelope, although I know that the colors are right, but they're too vibrant for this page. So how I'm gonna deal with that is I'm grabbing some tissue paper and I'm gonna overlay that on top of the envelope so you still see through the words, a little bit of the image, but the color are much more muted. I play around quite a bit, trying to figure out what piece is going to look best, but I decided to tear that top bit so that I could slide items in the pocket easier. And then I'm trying to decide what I'm going to use to glue the pocket onto the page. And at first I was going to use my glue stick, then I figured perhaps it won't. Then I was going to use the liquid glue, but the paper underneath is so thin that I knew it would really make it change the kind of warp it, I guess. So I decided to use some double-sided tape. So that was kind of my thought process. Okay, like what are the papers that I'm using? What is gonna work best for those kinds of papers? So I'm just removing the other side of the double-sided tape before securing that little envelope that will act as a pocket onto the page. The reason that I'm including the zucchini, we have a garden for the first year this summer, and we really didn't research a ton, and we planted the whole 55 seeds, I think it says. So quite a few grew. We gifted tons of them. We had I think close to 30 plants. So we gifted quite a few, and now we have 6 that are very big and producing many zucchinis. And my husband and I have been eating zucchinis every other day. We've grilled some, we have put some in pasta, and we're probably going to make a bread and all sorts of different recipes with it. We've already had a good minimum 10 of them, and there's 3 sitting on my counter right now, so it's a learning experience. I think we will be giving many more zucchinis over the next little while here. So I'm just layering some pieces of the paper here. I don't mind if it makes the image not as visible. You can really see the words, and that, I mean, I know it's there and I know what it is, and I go on to journaling about it, so it's still quite relevant to me. So to glue the paper, I do use some my glue stick because tissue paper is very thin, so using anything else will kind of go through it, and that's not what I'm going for. So now I want to add obviously more to the page, and I'm trying to decide, do I want to add more tissue paper, but I want something that pops a little bit more. So I grabbed more of that red washi tape and put that just under here, and I like the way that I broke the page a little bit more and added some color to it while it still shows the writing through the washi tape. And then I want to add that tag into the envelope. So I'm going to be distressing the back of that tag, and of course I'm making a little hole in it, and I'm adding a little ribbon to it. So here I see that it's very white, so I grabbed some distressing ink and just kind of ink up the back of it. If you have a printer at home, you can simply print on already tea-dyed papers, but as I said, the only printer I have at home is it's a laser printer, and it prints in black, as I was a student for a long time, so that's all I required. Of course, having a little bit more coffee. Do you guys like to journal in the morning, or do you tend to journal whenever throughout the day? I really like journaling in the morning. Mornings have always been my most productive time. So for me, it's a great opportunity to get a ton done and to really enjoy this moment of the day. I love mornings. I like having my coffee and looking out the window. When it's nice out, sometimes I'll go and have my coffee outside. So I just took a look through the different elements I had left that I wanted to work with, and I settled on this little ticket, which that little ticket has little holes in it. So I'm trying to distress it a little bit so that the white edges don't show, and then adding just a little bit more, but I'm not gonna bother doing the back of that one, as I'm just gonna staple it onto the page, so the back really won't be seen. And here I'm just showing you those little holes. I poked through the holes of the ticket simply using a needle. Obviously not like that, but you get the idea. So I'm just placing the ticket, and I will be stapling it onto the page. This would have been a really good tuck spot. I did end up using it that way, but it would have worked perfectly fine for that. So next I really want to use a couple labels and perhaps use some floral aspects, as I really enjoy using florals. So I have my labels. They're all organized in these little bits of boxes. They're all jewelry boxes from purchasing jewelry, and I've used washi tape to separate areas in them so that I can put more than just one type of label in them. And that's the best way I found to organize my labels. If I don't see something, I don't use it. I don't think about it. I recently switched all my things into a new desk, and there are drawers, and I put all my washi tape into the drawer, and I forgot I had washi tape for a few days, so I really need to see what I have to be able to use it. So I'm just playing around with a couple of labels and trying to figure out which ones I want to use and which one will work best on the pages. And now I'm grabbing some flower elements to add. I also had this last little bit of washi tape that I didn't want to go to waste, so I just stuck it onto the page. I really like these darker flowers, but this particular kind of sticker, every time I try to grab them, I rip them. So I do use one. I use this one here that I'm just grabbing, and as I was trying to peel it from the little plastic part, I ripped it twice. So just playing around, where do I want these things to go? And I really like where this flower is going, but I'm not quite pleased with how these leaves look. They're not quite big enough, and I really struggle picking my stickers. I end up spending a lot of time deciding which one looks best. Is it the right color? Does it go the right way? Do you guys struggle with being indecisive as well, or do you make decisions very easily in your journals? It really depends for me. I'll be indecisive for a bit, and then finally, if I'm too indecisive, I just go for it. So I settled with this one here, and then that bigger one on the other side. So you can see I ripped it. It's ripped over here, and then just a little bit lower as well. Very sticky though. Now that I've added the flowers, I'm ready to add my labels. And I really like the way that the red one looks on that page, as there's not as much red tones over there. So I felt like it kind of made everything flow a little bit better. So I use my glue stick for those. They're smaller items, so they stick quite well. But I do put a lot of glue when I'm using my glue stick, because if I go over just once, it doesn't tend to get much glue on there, as well as the area where I live is very dry, so glue sticks do dry out quite quicker. So you do tend to have to dig in them a little bit more. I'm not quite pleased with the bigger label, so I'm trying to see if there's a thinner, longer one that could work better. So I settle on the thinner one, and that's about where I put it. So again, I'm going to be using some glue. When I fussy cut, there's often little bits and pieces that get missed. So especially for my labels, I often end up having to cut them, trim them a little bit more before gluing them down. I believe those are Tracy Fox labels. I will double check and make sure to link that down below if you're interested. She has a ton of printables that are really fantastic. So I'm just preparing to stamp the date. I really enjoy stamping my date on those labels. Find it easy, and I really like stamping more than once. I like the look of that, so that's what I'm about to do. And I will be doing my journaling off camera. So here you have the finished product. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you in my next video. Thanks so much for joining me today. Hope you have a lovely day.